Hey everybody. So now it's time to start adding some interactivity to our web page. Now, first of all, you may have noticed that this page doesn't look like the same one or looks different than the one that we ended the last tutorial with. And that's because I decided to go back and add some styling to my other divs. So this is what my CSS file looks like now. You can see that I have one set of styles for each of my page divs, right? I've grabbed each one of them by name. And I made some tweaks to the code. I changed the background color from that bright red to this dark gray that's all threes. The color property, probably as a legacy from the early days of the web, actually affects the text color. Not super intuitive, but that's what it does. And that all Fs means that it's white. And one other thing I want to point out here, which will become more relevant when we dive deeper into CSS, is that you can see that by default, even though there's plenty of room to, have some of these boxes go next to each other, the default way that HTML interprets divs right now, is it stacks them on top of each other, which means that I have 4 boxes going down my page as opposed to going across it. There are CSS properties that have more layout impact that we'll talk about later that allow you to tell the page to essentially sort of stack divs horizontally, right? So put as many of them across as possible before it wraps down to the next line, if you will. But for now, we're just going to leave our page like this. I hope that you had a chance to sort of futz around with some CSS properties and maybe make some changes, customize your own page. But now we're going to sort of dive into something a bit different. We're going to dive into JavaScript and specifically jQuery. So what is jQuery? jQuery, what is JavaScript? JavaScript is a web programming language that allows us to add interactivity. It's been around since the early days of the web and really does pretty much everything that we want to do, from letting people click on things to loading data files, to moving things around the page, sometimes even adding elements to the page or removing them from the page. It's pretty powerful stuff. The thing is that it's a little bit it's a little bit hard to get into, and it requires writing a lot of code. And the truth is that there are certain things that, frankly, as programmers, right, we want to do very frequently. And the way that JavaScript as a coding language was structured meant that you had to write a lot of code in order to do really simple things, like, say, make something clickable. So a bunch of folks got together and started what we call a framework called jQuery. And it's just a community of programmers that contribute to this framework. And what it does is it basically makes it faster and easier to do things that you want to do a lot, like make things clickable. How do we use a framework like this? Well, basically what we do is I'm just going to go to jQuery.com here. And the great thing about jQuery is that it's really well maintained. It's got great documentation and examples, which is always nice. There are a lot of things out there that don't. And what it means is that other people have written a bunch of code that make using JavaScript faster and easier. And if you include their code on your page through that head tag, right, how that head tag says, hey, mix this in the bucket, then you can take advantage of all the work that these other programmers have done to make it fast and easy to get basic interactivity and sometimes really complex effects onto your web page. So in order to take advantage of that, the first thing we're going to do is come to jQuery.com and click on the download button. Now, in fact, we're not going to download the code. What we're going to do is we're going to point to that code that's hosted on somebody else's website, in this case specifically Google's. And the way we do that is, if you see I did that, I went to download and I clicked CDN hosted jQuery, and I'm going to just click on this link. So when I click on this link, I get something that looks like gobbledygook, and that's totally okay. We don't have to understand any of this code in order to be able to take advantage of it. We'll use the documentation later to kind of figure out what's possible. So right now what I'm going to do is just copy what's in the URL bar here, and I'm going to flip back to my Aptana Studio and to my HTML page. So again, what we want to tell our page to do is, hey, take all this great jQuery stuff and mix it in the bucket. And so to do that, we're going to put in a tag, and we're going to say, look, This is some scripting stuff that we need. The content that you're going to pull in through this tag is script, aka JavaScript. jQuery is a form of JavaScript. And what type is it? Well, we're going to say, guess what? It is text JavaScript, right? Be very careful that if you use that dropdown that you choose JavaScript and not JScript. It won't work if you use JScript. And then we're going to use the src, also known as the source tag. You'll see that in a couple of other places. Image tags, for example, use the src source tag. And then all we're going to do is when we open up those quotes, we're going to paste in that URL. And I close my tag. If we're very lucky, yep. So there we see Aptana went ahead and closed the script tag for us. So that's awesome. What it means is that now we have all of that great jQuery stuff available to us. But how do we use it? The first thing we need to do is create a JavaScript file, right? So we're starting to see a pattern here. We have different types of code. We create a file for each type of code. So we keep each type together, and then we use the head tag of the HTML page to mix them in and actually make our web app work. So as before, we're going to go to File, New from Template, whoops, and we're going to say JavaScript. And you see all it does is it's actually just getting my, we'll just change this. I want to be author at Susan E. McGee right now. Okay, and what you're seeing here is this is a way of formatting comments in JavaScript. And when you see something that's tinted out like this, it means that the web browser isn't going to try to interpret it, right? So I could write anything I want in there, and it's going to go, oh, okay, that's not code that I'm supposed to do anything with. I'm just going to skip it. Otherwise, if you just start putting gobbledygook in the main file, it's going to get really confused and probably yell at you. So as before, we're going to save this, right? First step, I'm going to say no to that. Again, I still don't understand what's happening there, but it's not a problem. Forget it. And I'm going to say basic web app functions. Again, if you're not really familiar with what the concept of a function is, oops, and see what I did there? I forgot to add the file type. So I've got to say .js, okay, javascript.js. So now I'm going to get rid of this file that is poorly named. Yes, I do. And I only want my JS file. Good. So now the thing about JavaScript is that we want the JavaScript to be able to affect our divs and elements on our HTML page, right? Oops. Right? So we want it to say, let's say we want to make page div 1 clickable, right? If you click it, we want something to happen. Well, the thing is that with a browser, browsers read the way that people do. Sorry, not the way that people do, the way that English readers do. That's important, right? Top to bottom, left to right. And the thing is that when you open up a URL, right, if I say load a random web page, let's just go to Google, right? This will come up pretty fast, but there was a little lag there, as you can see, right? I put in the URL, I hit return, and then there was kind of like a couple of seconds where there was nothing on the page. Well, that's because it takes the browser a little time to interpret the code, right? To interpret the code that's on your HTML page and go, oh, okay, I understand what's happening here. So why is this relevant? Because until that little calculation has happened by the browser, has been done by the browser, and it goes, okay, I see this page, it's got this head tag, it's got 4 divs, these are their names, I got it, I'm set, I'm ready to go. Until that happens, we can't do anything, we can't use JavaScript to then add functionality to any of those divs or other elements on the page. We just can't, because the browser doesn't know what's there. So the way that jQuery deals with this is it has a special function, and it's called and it's an event handler that basically in the background in the browser is going, you know, it's calculating, okay, this is what's on the page, this is what's on the page, and then it gives off, it sends out this invisible event, this invisible signal that says, okay, I've done all my calculations, I know everything that's there. This is called the document ready event. And jQuery is specially designed to pick up this event, and then it uses that event as a way to say, oh, okay, The page is loaded. The browser knows everything that's on it. I'm ready to start adding interactivity. And the way that this looks, and again, I'm going to recommend, as I often will, that we're just going to go back to jQuery.com. This is a really nice reference. And we're going to start with tutorials, I think. And let's go to getting started with jQuery here. And we've got setup, starter kit, blah, blah, blah. This is our very basic, oh, I don't actually like the way that it's done. But the very basic function is, you can see, is this document ready function. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take that and we're going to add it to our JavaScript. So we're going to say document, whoops, document, right, ready. And now, in parentheses here, I'm going to put something that says, I'm ready. So what is this I'm ready thing that I put in here? Well, it's not anything yet. What it's going to be, in just a second, when I write it, is it's going to be the instructions for what to do when that document has loaded. And for now, I'm going to keep it really, really simple. All I'm going to do is have it create what we call an alert, which is that pop-up window that you saw in the sample way back at the intro, and give it a message. It's a really basic sort of way of communicating, sort of popping things up in the browser. Kind of obnoxious, but definitely you don't miss it. Doesn't require a lot of effort. So it's a good way to start. Not a good way to debug in the long run, but we'll get there. So now I need to create my function. And so I'm going to say function, I'm ready. Notice that it matches exactly what I've put in the parentheses here. Okay. And I'm going to put just these two open and close braces, right? And we'll talk a little bit later about what that is and why it's that way. And then we're just going to say alert. And in that alert statement, I'm going to say, hey, I'm ready. Right? And once that's done, what should happen is, as soon as that document, that invisible document ready event fires, what do we say when an event quote unquote fires? When that happens, then we should get this alert that says, hey, I'm ready. So of course, the final step, we won't try not to screw it up this time, is we're going to actually link to our custom JavaScript file. Now, it is very important in this case, right? Oops, that wasn't very useful. It's very important in this case that we do this, that we put this link in after the one that points to our jQuery file. And the reason for that is that we're using jQuery functions. And again, the way that the browser reads is from top to bottom. So we need to make sure that we have those data functions, those jQuery functions, before we try to start using them. So if I save this and all has gone according to plan, we'll find out, I should get an alert once the page is loaded. And there we go. I've got this message popping up saying, hey, I know where everything is on this web page. I'm ready to start doing stuff with it. So in the next video, we will look at adding some basic functionality, a click event, and loading some data, some JSON data. So see you in a few.